might be surprised with what we get here. And I said, how about no? Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. I have a ball of wax inside this butter muslin, and we recently did just harvest our honey in this way. It's called a crush and strain honey harvest, and I'm going to use this butter muslin to also help me render the wax. So when you do any kind of honey harvest, really, there's little impurities in the wax. You might end up with the odd bee part or ant or something like that, and we want to be able to render the wax through this butter muslin. It's like a finely woven cheesecloth in order to get all of that out. So this is a little electric pressure cooker here. I'm going to use it on the crock pot setting in order to render the wax. So I actually have kind of a great deal of wax that we're going to be rendering today as far as home beekeepers go. This isn't a large operation at all. This is actually some wax from either last year or the year before that I had kept in the freezer, and then this is more wax with a little bit of honey still in it. I am going to put that in here and that will be okay. It probably would have been easiest for me to remove all of this wax, although that wasn't bad. I was going to say if I had it in the freezer and just sort of cut the plastic off from around it, but this didn't do too badly. Now, essentially what I'd like to do here is create like a giant tea bag. We want to be able to contain all of the impurities. What's going to happen is the wax is actually going to melt and strain out through this cloth, and we want all of the impurities to stay inside. I'm going to use this clip. There we go. This is just water. There. And I'm just going to turn the slow cook option on. That's going to heat the water up, which is going to heat the wax up, and then it will just slide right out of the butter muslin into the water. And wax is not going to mix with the water. It's a lot like oil and water. And so we'll come back in a little bit and I'll show you the next step. It really doesn't take long to really melt down. Good morning. So it is the next day, and as you saw in the B-roll, I did end up losing some patience because I'm not known for having patience, and I poured over some boiling water onto the wax, and that really helped speed things up. I have never tried to render as much wax before as we did this time, and so I think maybe the quantity had something to do with the fact that it was taking a little while, but I let this cool overnight, and as you can see, the wax is kind of floating on top of the water. I have poked my finger in here, and I did kind of stack up some of the wax that was in the other bowl on top of this one. And from here, I would like to render the wax down again and then put it in the molds. On the stove, I have a double boiler set up. I've got a pot with some water, and then this is a glass measuring cup with a pour spout. I like to do that for pouring the wax out into the molds. You can see there's some wax kind of stuck to the side in there, and that will be fine. I do want to blot the moisture off of the wax. The wax will tend to rise to the top, and the water, any kind of excess water, will stay towards the bottom of the mold that I put the wax in, and it just creates a strange texture. Let's try to get them, you know, as dry as possible, these chunks. And I am going to turn the burner on. My burner only has 2 speeds. It's on and or off, and on is high. So I'm going to play around with the temperature a little bit so I don't scorch things, or so I don't boil the water. I really just need it to simmer. We don't need the wax to be super, super hot. It melts at around 145 degrees. You can see that we have retained a beautiful yellow coloring, and there is a little bit of kind of brown speckly stuff on the bottom. See this here? I'm going to choose to be okay with that. I do have little inclusions like that in my wax. I'm assuming it is essentially propolis. Propolis is made from resins from trees. The bees collect it and they use it like glue in their hives to shore up any holes that might be in the hive. They use it to kind of stick things together, and it has amazing antiviral and antibacterial properties. So, Lord have mercy, the mess that I've made. Okay, now here comes the fun part. I actually purchased this pretty neat beeswax silicone mold. I have put my beeswax in a silicone cupcake mold before, so that's totally a possibility. These are 1 ounce measurements, and so I thought that was pretty cool. Our wax is good and melted. We do have a couple of those random floaties of whatever they are. I'm gonna decide to be okay with that. It's always surprising to me how little wax we get. The wax comb is so fine and delicate, and it crushes up to basically nothing. I might be surprised with what we get here. There seems to be an extra amount of whatever this is, the junk, in this particular batch. I recall that while we were scraping off the frames that it looked like some of the honey was in old brood comb, so I'm guessing that this might be a little bit of bee cocoon that's in here and not as much propolis. Now when I make my tallow, or we render our tallow, I will pass it through a milk filter. Hot fat solidifies slower than beeswax. I'm a little bit nervous about this clogging up super quickly, but I guess okay. We got some of it through. It just feels like it wastes some wax, but if it's cleaner wax, then maybe that's worth it. Yeah, that's definitely working. Tell already that the wax that we just poured, that we sent through the milk filter, is already a lot cleaner, and so I've broken up the other wax chunks and I'm going to remelt them and pass them through the filter in the same way. There is somewhat of a measure of waste with that since the beeswax just solidifies so fast, but I get a much cleaner product, and when you're making things like lip balms and stuff, you want it to be clean wax. This is an example of what can happen if there's a little bit of moisture or water in with the wax. You get some little ugly bits. So I'm gonna keep this one for me. Truthfully, we don't use a lot of beeswax now that we are rendering our own tallow. We still do use beeswax, and I have some from last year. I'll be hanging on to this, but this is what I have to sell. Now I'm planning a second drop for our website, so these are probably not listed quite yet. Just stay tuned to know when I'm going to be putting more things on the website. But I wanted to leave you with a little bit of wisdom that I learned when I was in art school. So when I was a senior in high school, I had an art exhibition at a local art studio, and we could sell our pieces from there. And my art teacher told me, because it's really hard to quantify with something like visual art how much it should cost. And he said, you want to price your piece as high as you need to be comfortable parting with it. And I really took that to heart. I priced a lot of my pieces pretty high, and I did sell some. I was actually quite pleasantly surprised, and that was the point, is that when they sell, you want the value to be worth more to you than the piece itself. So I was online yesterday looking at the prices that, you know, 1 ounce beeswax bars go for from huge companies, and the answer was about $1 per bar. And I looked at that and I said, how about no? A lot of bigger companies that just have a lot of wax and a lot of big equipment to help make the process easier can justify that cost. That's not something that I can justify. A lot like with our dairy goats, I cannot justify selling a goat for less than $150 because to me, they're worth more than that in the freezer. So if I can't be happy with $150, I'm not happy, and I'd rather keep it for myself. So keep that in mind when you're pricing your goods from your homestead. What kind of value does the product that you've produced have for you? Are you comfortable keeping it if it can't sell? And if you do sell it, what is it worth to you? I mean, it's nice to be able to use the market value, things that you see things selling for, to judge right about what things should cost, but I wouldn't hold yourself to that. We are very small producers of the things that we produce, and really we don't set out to produce things for the public to begin with. What we sell is our excess. I happen to have a little bit of excess beeswax this year. It's not a lot, but I think to me, a 2-pack of these is probably worth $5. That's definitely more than you can find beeswax for online, but that's what it would take for me to part with it. Will I be fine if it doesn't sell for that? Yes, I will. I have a couple of relevant videos that have to do with beeswax. Last year during Vlogmas, I made a beeswax and tallow candle. And I think also sometime last year, I made this lavender infused beeswax salve. Go ahead and give those videos a click. I'll see you over there, and I will see you again here real soon.